Revelation 13:15. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast. Supplement to the book of Revelation and the assassination of Emperor Domitian. The following will hopefully impress upon the viewer the likely explanation of the 15th verse of chapter 13 of the book of Revelation/Apocalypse of John insofar as its mention of the image of the beast coming to life and speaking is concerned. My first source is the book The Art of the Puppet by Ben Baird, specifically pages 37 and 38. Lucian, the Greek writing some 600 years after Herodotus, describes the performance of the oracular god Jupiter Ammon at Heliopolis. Invasion, occupation, and cultural overlays had by then mingled the deities of Egypt and Rome. Ammon originally was Are, the sun god, whose cult was centered at Heliopolis, the sun city. Then the all-conquering Romans made him a suffix to their own Jupiter. When the image of Jupiter Ammon wanted to speak, it moved by itself, or so the people believed. If the priest didn't question the oracle, it moved again to gain attention. In any event, the image of Jupiter Ammon, placed on a litter supported on the shoulders of 80 priests whom he directed by the turning of his head, was carried several times around the hall of the temple of Apollo and then questioned by the head priest. If the god were disposed to answer affirmatively, his image drove the carriers forward. If the answer were negative, they backed up. The figure finally rose to the vault of the temple. I saw it, says Lucian, with my own eyes. The ancient puppeteer inside the litter, or next to it, probably experienced a thrill of power or had a good laugh. The Romans even had a name addendum for the control room behind the statues, where the priests stood to pull their secret wires and to speak through tubes, concealed in the masonry, that carry their voices to stone mouths sometimes quite a distance away. In addition to the moving statuary, some quite marvelous automata had been constructed. Petronius mentions a silver doll that could move like a human being. Eastern caliphs were diverted by trees adorned with mechanical birds that sang and flagged their wings, powered by water. Our best source of information on automata, however, was a Greek contemporary of Lucian's, Heron of Alexandria. Heron was a mathematician and natural philosopher, and he probably understood exactly how Jupiter Ammon was induced to move. He has explained the mechanics of such animated figures as the statue of Bacchus, which poured milk, water, or wine over the figure of a panther, while Bacchantes danced automatically in a circle around the two figures. Heron is credited with having a theater in which a mythical tale of vengeance, fire, storm, and shipwreck was played entirely with automatic mechanism. The Greek fleet returning home from Troy was lured by false beacons onto the rocks and was destroyed. This must have been a fascinating miniature spectacle. Anything larger would certainly have had people running it. If the golden statue of Apollo at Heliopolis could nod its head and flight, the biblical golden calf may well have switched its tail. There is no doubt that the use of the animated figure was a practical thing in early religious ceremony, and attempts to stamp it out were not very effective. The following is from the Dictionary of Roman and Greek Antiquities with nearly 2,000 engravings on wood from ancient originals illustrative of the industrial arts and social life of the Greeks and Romans. Anthony Rich, B.A. Honorary Fellow of OONVILLE and Caius College, Cambridge. 5th edition revised and improved, 1884. ADYTUM The private or secret chamber in a temple, from which every person but the officiating priests were strictly excluded. That the adytum was distinct from the cella, is clear from a passage of Lucan, in which the priestess, dreading the violent exertions she would have to undergo from the stimulants applied in the secret chamber to produce an effect like prophetic inspiration, Pavin's Additi Penetrale Remodi Fatidicum stops short in the body of the temple and refuses to advance into the adytum, or danatrum as it is there termed, until she is compelled by force. A chamber of this kind is represented in that portion of the annexed illustration, which lies behind the circular abscess, marked in a stronger tin than the rest, and which communicates with the body of the edifice by two doors, one on each side. The whole represents the ground plan of a small Doric temple, formerly existing near the theatre of Marcellus, at Rome, on the site of which the church of S. Nicola in Carcera now stands. It is copied from the work of Labaco, who surveyed it in the 16th century. Libro dell'Architettura, Roma, 1558. Apartments of this description were constructed for the purpose of enabling the priesthood to delude their votaries by the delivery of oracular responses, the exhibition of miracles, or any sort of preternatural effects, and at the same time conceal the agency by which they were produced. They consequently were not attached to all temples, but only to those in which oracles were uttered, or where the particular form of worship was connected with mysteries, which explains why such contrivances are so seldom met with in the ground plans of ancient temples still existing. But the remains of another ancient temple at Albufesudes, in the country of the Marsi, now Alb, on the lake of Fusano, afford ample confirmation that the illustration introduced may be regarded as a true specimen of the ancient adytum. The interior of that edifice retained its pristine form, and was in a complete state of preservation when visited by the writer. It differs only slightly in construction from the example in the cut, for the secret chamber is not placed behind the axis, but is constructed underneath it, part being sunk lower than the general floor of the main body of the temple cella and part raised above it, so that the portion above would appear to the worshippers in the temple merely as a raised basement, occupying the lower portion of the axis, and intended to support in an elevated position the statue of the deity to whom the edifice was dedicated, nor has it any door or visible communication into the body of the temple, the only entrance into it being afforded by a postern gate within a walled enclosure at the back of the premises, through which the priests introduced themselves and their machinery unseen and unknown. But the one remarkable feature of the whole, and that which proves to conviction the purpose to which it has been applied, consists in a number of tubes or hollow passages formed in the walls, which communicate from this hidden recess into the interior of the temple, opening upon different parts of the main walls of the cella, and thus enable the voice to be conveyed into any part of the temple, whilst the person and place from whence it comes remain concealed. Hopefully, this video will further my goal of destroying the momentum as well as the possibility of a recovery and subsequent attempt by those who seek to create the impression of the fulfillment of the world-ruling beast system prophecies from the Book of Revelation. I have every reason to hold that they intend to neutralize any physical opposition, or at least any in which the opposition forces intend to, or believe that they can, succeed in defeating the pretenders to their bid for world domination by current Christians and those who might become convinced by their fraud,